Hello, dear husband.
Hello, dear wife.
So we meet again.
Under the cover of night, under the twinkling of the moon and the stars, atop the canyons and under the ocean, all at the same time.
How come I can never actually match that?
Because I've been practicing to be in this situation since I was about 4 years old watching TV. You know, it's so interesting because today's topic is about past lives.
Right.
That when I think of different eras, so I think of the 70s when I was a little kid and the 80s where I was more like conscious, teenager or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Those seem like past lives to me now.
Right.
Isn't
it is
that
like a
interesting?
whole different version of you existed during that time.
Yeah, because it was a different world.
Yeah.
It was different clothes. I think I probably spoke differently. I certainly said different things.
Right.
Everything in the world was different. How we saw humanity, for the most part. Of course, we always had spiritual teachings. But it was different. Those are past lives to me. Like people say, who were you in a past life? Oh, I was this 80s kid. But it was in this body, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
It was like you're a different person.
It was.
Well, welcome to our show, everyone. I am intuitive empath, Lady O.
And I am psychic medium, trance channel, and shaman Riz the Wiz, as my friends like to call me. And I like to call me because I believe in wizardry and magic, and that what we do and on our channel, Metamystic, has always been about helping you guys and walking with you guys into the unknown together. This is what we are constantly diving into, guys, on this channel. If you've never joined us before, this is Midnight Madness. This is our midweek drop, usually midweek, which is where we dive in a little deeper with you guys. Because on Psychic Sundays, where we're doing readings for several hours live, that's a party. That's a psychic party. That's with spirit guides, archangels,
it is a party.
Right? Ancestors all coming through. This is where we just... Apparently, we have to get very serious in the midweek.
Dropping in time.
Yeah, because everybody's
workshop time.
Yeah, it's workshop time.
Some people like it because they're like, this is homework time for me. Get your pen and pad out and start learning and focusing on different things in the paranormal, psychic realms.
Supernatural, the metaphysical, all of this is the mystical realm. And it's because we're seeing things now, especially the last several years, after everything the planet has been through. What I have noticed personally is that there has been an upsurge, an uptick, is that the right word? In everyone's interest in the mystic side of life, or the mystic approach to life, because I believe life itself is mystical. It's not like the mystic side of life. What we mean by that is that you're changing your lens on how do you see everything is existing, how things are being created, how you are transforming.
And past lives seem to be a hot topic for a lot of people because everybody has reached out to us over the course of our podcast and said, talk more about past lives.
And can you explain the mess that I'm in right now?
They just want to know, does it get better? Did I have it better? It's all about like, there has to be more than just what I'm experiencing. So we do have actually a lot to say about past lives. We have spent a lot of time on this topic. We do have another video where we started the conversation about past lives, but we can always still go deeper because there is so much information here and it's never going to end because we're constantly evolving this conversation.
Well, growing up in an Indian household, reincarnation and past lives, it's actually even part of, even in Hindi, which I grew up speaking, there's a phrase, and in Hindi you say, Pichli janam ki baat hai. Pichli janam ki baat hai. What that means is that something happens, it means it's from my past life. And this is a casual phrase that is said in Hindi.
Well, it's starting to happen now over here.
Like you'll be, in India, some people will be talking and they'll say, oh, okay, so why do you like to be doing that? Or why did you connect with that person? And in casual conversation, they'll say, Pichli janam ki baat hai.
That's awesome.
So what we are talking about now in the West, or, me growing up in New York and you in LA, like you said, is that it's no longer just about the new age thing. And you're finding this all across the country. You're finding it in conversations in Starbucks, whether you're sitting in Nebraska or downtown LA or in...
It's becoming more common.
Texas.
I think I've seen it in a couple commercials also.
Yeah, weren't we watching this car insurance commercial where they were sitting there meditating and talking about
And I was like, well, those must be for LA audiences only, because I don't think they would be
well, here we just take it seriously. Anywhere.
But yes, it's true.
So that I grew up with that. And then I noticed that at school, no one was interested in talking about that, or that was a joke. But now look.
Well, I learned about past lives when we had our first real big psychedelic mushroom experience
Yes.
journey when we first met. And up until then, I was a practicing Christian, and then I had left the Christian religion and was exploring and moving on. Years later, when I met Riz, we had this opportunity, and it was the first time I had a real life, fully expressed 3D experience.
Well, you grew up religious. It wasn't you were practicing, just to clarify, she wasn't practicing till then, meaning till she met me, meaning it had been many years.
I was born into the religion.
Yeah, so it had been decades. You were out of it and you were searching.
So, but my programming was still there. So if you would have talked to me about past lives, even though I was exploring the more spiritual side of things, I think I would have still not understood exactly how that works or how to feel about it. But it was that experience that we had that set me off on a course, because I was 100% the character, the person that I used to be in the 1800s. I think it was like 1889,
So your personality carried over?
My personality carried over to this personality today, was talking to you. Your past life personality was talking back to me as the couple we were.
Yeah, in the journey.
And this went on for 10 minutes at least, which felt like forever. And it was something I couldn't control.
There's going to be all these puns tonight. Felt like forever. We've been doing this a long time.
Well, you can point it out, I'm sure. And I had all these, I had the accent, I had the mannerisms, I had a lot of memories that came back from that time period. So after that experience with you, I went on a mission. It was like it sent me down this road of, I want to know more about my past lives now.
Did you read some of I think I had recommended some of I call them the starter books. Also, they're still quite popular today. Which was, do you remember the first book I recommended to you on past lives?
I can't remember.
Many Lives, Many Masters.
That's right.
Many Lives, Many Masters, which was by Brian Weiss. If you guys haven't read it, find Many Lives, Many Masters. And then there was another book called Journey of the Soul.
Those are great starter books.
That's Michael Newton. And those are great introduction books. Yeah, guys, read those books.
They give you real life, tangible stories from real life people that actually experienced it. But so as far as the past lives conversation goes, you would have to go into the metaphysical world, because you're going to have to understand that these are multidimensional realities we're talking about, because then we'll also have to talk about how time doesn't exist and these realities are existing, and that gets really complex.
It's going to get very layered.
The basics first, but I want to let you know that this is actually the undercurrent of where past lives come from, is actual experiences that you are having in other timelines that are you as a different ethnicity, a different race,
different gender,
everything. And you're experiencing life in a different way. But the big question people want to know when they find out what their past lives are by psychics or tuning in or having experiences is they want to know, why does that, or how does that impact me today? Why is it important for me to know about my past lives?
Well, I can start off as a medium who does past life readings. When I sit with people, oftentimes I feel the connection between them and several other people. So I'll be doing a reading and I'll say certain names. I'll say, oh, I'm getting these 3 names. I feel that these 3 names are names of people that are in your life now that were connected to you in a past life where you had many powerful experiences with them. And so usually that's the case. So I'll say the name, and sometimes it's surprising because it's not always great. It might be the name of the boss that they're having trouble with. A lot of challenges. They don't like this person at all. They're constantly at, butting heads, and they would rather not know each other. And that's because that karmic bond of conflict needed to be worked out in this lifetime. They might have been best friends before. So that's one of the basics. I find that our basic group of people who are close to us have had past lives together, and we switch roles when we come back to this life.
And I think my theory, and I really want to talk about this because I think it's, I haven't had it validated with the guides yet and talked about it, but I really do feel very strongly that when we come to this life as a soul, all the multiple times that we come as new souls and then more experienced souls. And further along, we become like the graduate senior class, like PhD souls. Yeah. I think we grow and grow and grow as we come through these reincarnations, right? But I do think, and this is my theory, I do think that what we do is we start out as young souls coming to Earth, this particular Earth one, and we're here. And what we're doing is we're understanding how creation works. So as we go along, I'm seeing a correlation and a pattern, and I think it holds true for even ourselves, that what happens is there's a career or a success that happens to a new soul, and it's unexplained. For instance, nepotism, or 100% fame at like 19, 15 years old for no reason.
Or financial success.
Financial success. You just fall into it. It's like you have no idea. You tripped and became a multimillionaire, billionaire. Like all of a sudden you're just... the idea.
On the first try.
On the first try. You're super young. You didn't have to go through all the hard work everybody else had to go through. Everybody else, they call it unlucky, but it's not unlucky. It's because we're learning something else, which we'll get to about past lives. So I think what happens is that, let's say a past life of mine, I'll use myself as an example. Let's say I was a king in a huge Incan empire, and I was shrouded in royalty and gold and all this stuff. And then here I'm just, born into a middle-class family in Los Angeles, and my dad was a laborer, and and I've had to work and learn every single step of the way how to create, how to become who I am, how to be educated, how to be successful, how to do everything is like step by step by step. There's no breaks.
So what you didn't learn in the last lifetime, you come to learn this lifetime.
Right, because I got to experience it. I have the feeling, and I know a lot of people can relate to that, is they feel like, I know what it's like to be really famous, or I know what it's like to be royal, or I know what it's like to be a monk, or I know what it's like to be a farmer, or I know. How do you know those feelings?
Well, I think that for me, the answer is past lives, but you also think about this. None of us know how many lifetimes we have lived. But I would say, just as a medium, again, I'm speaking from my personal experience, I would say I usually get about 100 with people. That's what it feels like. I'm just telling you intuitively.
And he said I had 3,800 lives.
Yeah, so you had a different answer.
1,800.
So you have different answers.
I'm just hard-headed.
But now remember something as well. Because guys, when we're going to just dive deep so early into the conversation, we might as well dive a little bit. Let's touch on it. Let's talk about multi-dimensional reality. We are all starting to really talk about this truth, I feel, that we are living in these other lifetimes at the same time. That time is not linear, that it is simultaneous. So how would you break this down? There's a lot of different ways we can try to make this make sense.
Like a freeway. Boom, boom, boom.
Many lanes all at the same time.
Yeah, all going in the same direction.
Or you could even have a multiplex that is showing 30 different movies. They all start at 2 o'clock or 1:30 or 2:15, around the general same time.
Right.
Every movie is different.
Right.
But they're all playing at the same time. The walls between those cinemas is where you can't see or hear it. But once in a while, when this theater gets too quiet, you might be able to hear the explosion from the action movie playing next door, which is the same as you started to have deja vu, where I have experienced this thing before. It's what we call, and you were explaining the other day, is a bleed through. So while we're talking about past lives, guys, we also have to understand that there's a conversation that we kind of can't ignore too much, which is multidimensional, but we have to put it aside. Let's put it on the back burner and turn the flame low, and we'll get to that. But why don't we talk about the idea of lessons? There's external leading to internal. So you're poor or you're wealthy. Then there's you died young, or you died with a handicap, or you came back super powerful, strong. What do you think do you think that we are the ones who are choosing the curriculum?
Absolutely. 100%. You couldn't even convince me otherwise. I know
pain usually makes people feel I didn't choose this.
I know. I used to feel that way. I don't feel that way anymore because I've done all my checks and balances and all my journaling and research work and my reverse engineering, and I have really come to the conclusion that I'm here to learn how to create. It comes down to that. It's very, very simple. So for instance, in this lifetime, for me, creating like artistic expression, you know, having hobbies or like doing these sets and like color and like working with texture and like having a fashion line and all the stuff that I've done, natural, easy, flow. I didn't have to worry about how to do it. I didn't have to study anything. It was just, and that's what happens to a lot of people who are mastered that in other lifetimes and other past lives. So that wasn't my course of study to worry about in this lifetime, but it was how to be very organized and how to create structures and teams and working together with people, collaborations, learning how to be influential from a grounded place, not from like a, somebody just, you know, when I was 19 years old, had me, let's say, on their, you know, I was going to say podcast, but I remember when I was 19, there was no podcast. So it'd be like another form, maybe in their book, okay, because we had books back then. So let's say they mentioned me in their book and they're a famous author, and then overnight I have success. And then all of a sudden I have this thriving business and blah, blah, blah because of this famous book.
Right. So sometimes life, you struggle a lot more. It's not that you don't work hard. It's not like the 20-year-old tech guru who created an amazing social media platform didn't work hard. It's just that person definitely didn't have 40 years of beating their head against the wall, like let's say a Tesla or an inventor who died poor and never stopped.
Yeah, I think that like let's use Zuckerberg as an example.
Yeah.
So I believe that, let's say, a past life of his.
Yes.
He probably had been working on technical things and had been working on letting a channeling come through and letting dreams come through, and also you can say the same for Steve Jobs.
So innovation.
And so those, you know, innovative creators and inventors who have dreams that come to them, and there's a list a mile long of those people. You don't know that if maybe in a past life they had been working on this area for many lifetimes.
It could have been he was working on smoke signals when he was in a tribe.
Up. That's right.
Or he was great at it.
Or he was great at it, but it wasn't the time for it, etc.
Or he was just great at smoke signals.
Yeah.
And that was it. He was the best smoke signal tribal person in, you know, the year 650 somewhere.
Yes. And then 500 lifetimes later,
he becomes the guy who makes Facebook.
Or let's say 200.
Which is about communication.
Yes, exactly. Right. But it's because he learned how to be an open channel. He learned how to decipher his dreams better. Okay, so each time there's a progress, each time you get better at what it is you're doing. So that's why I've been experiencing more and more deja vu. And it's because I'm starting to realize, so I have tried to be this version of me so many times. Now, here's the thing. I was not Araya for 3,800 lives.
Right.
My soul was the same. And how I know this, and I say it with certainty, is because how many channeled books and our guides have channeled this information that when you die, your personality essence stays the same. You still are with yourself. You don't go into a void of blackness and then you disappear and you don't exist anymore. You still have a conscious mind. People who have...
meaning you are consciousness itself.
That's right.
You can still choose
people
left or right.
People who have had near-death experiences that have come back have said the same thing. They're like, I heard myself talking to myself. How did I do that? I didn't have a body. And this also happens in journeys. So we have facts to know that your personality essence stays the same.
Yes.
So now let's take Araya back before Araya. Well, I was a bunch of other things, but I could have been working on the same conversation, which was to be creatively expressed, to be a person who creates peace with others and helps people to heal and work, you know, whatever that I'm working on now. Right?
Yes.
So it could have been years of this. And like this lifetime, at 18 years old, I decided to have a bunch of kids.
And I'm glad that you brought up that it's not that, well, one lifetime I'm poor, so next lifetime I'll be rich, or lifetime I was a king, and next time I'm going to be poor.
I don't think it's that drastic.
No, it's very incremental. When I've looked into people's past lives, I've seen it as incremental. Is that you're building on it with each successive lifetime, meaning that, look, you go to school for 4 years on the same subject. Okay, I'm going to take a master's course in writing. Right, so you're going to go to class every single day.
So when you think it's really hard,
the professors will change, but you're still overall working on becoming a writer. Right. Just like medical school. There's so many different teachers, so many different years. You might even go to different campuses. But the journey of becoming that. Now, after you graduate medical school, you may decide, well, now I want to be an opera singer. So I'm just saying that the you as a soul change the, I want to say, the curriculum after that lifetime is done, or several lifetimes have done. Okay, I had 10 lifetimes. It was just about becoming an artist. And then the next 10 lifetimes are going to be about something else. We can't really get into the why as much, because then you get into, well, what's the whole meaning of life? But for me, I mean, I actually might be able to answer. For me, it always comes down to creation. That we're never-ending creative story, never-ending creative conversation that's going on.
We're all storytellers. We're telling our story.
Now,
right?
yes. So I want to say something interesting, because we were talking about, well, here's the cat that has 9 lives. She's here. Maybe she'll jump up here and talk. You want to talk about 9 lives? No. She'll decide. Okay. So you were saying something earlier about learning the lessons, kind of in this realm about learning the lessons and coming back. And you definitely chose the life that you chose, even with all the struggles that you've gone through. Something came to my mind where it was like, well, we also choose to go to the gym and do different exercises. And it's not like the gym is a pleasurable experience the first few hundred times around. It's, you learn to love it because of what it's doing for you over time. So all these lifetimes, I like to say, are kind of like different exercises. So for 300 years, I did legs, which is right. Then the next 300 years, I worked on my cardio. That's like you kept doing these lifetimes, and the lifetimes represent exercises that are for the wellness of your being over time.
And for me personally, I felt like in the beginning when I started this journey and becoming more awakened to this, I thought that being a healer, including, sharing my gifts, which would be different modalities, like energy healings or like intuitive readings or things like that, was going to be the pinnacle. Like, that's why I came to the planet. I found out that was just the entrance fee. I found out, boy,
that's the qualifying lap.
That is the qualifying lap. That, if you're a healer, and you guys know, you'll find out. It is a feeling of, oh, this is just to get centered so you can find peace with your expression. So what I ended up doing was I realized I have to look at everything from a new lens, and I have to see, what is it that I'm working on? So it's always the things that you're struggling with. That's what you're working on. That's what you're learning about, that you're trying to have a breakthrough from the other life.
Wherever there's
your other lives.
Kind of conflict or tension.
Yeah. So for me in this lifetime, I needed to learn how, because I didn't have a problem creating and building and learning. I'm a natural born student. Everything is exciting. Yep. I'm really into life. Give me more, give me more. I'm a Taurus. Everything's yummy.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I started realizing that, wow, like I struggle a lot. Like I'm like constantly trying to climb big mountains, and it seems really hard to climb these mountains. And then it's taken me all these years to look back and realize, oh, it's because in the other lifetimes, I probably was in different, it could be different earths or different eras or different societies where things came to me easier, where I could just snap my fingers. It was much easier to create. This lifetime, my senior class PhD program, what I'm learning is, no, I have to learn the intricate little tiny details of how things work. And my story is, it's hard and it's a struggle. That's the story I'm trying to dismantle. It's not that it is hard, and it's not that it's a struggle. It's that I'm so unfamiliar with going so intricate and micro nano to every detailed particle of creation of what I'm doing. I'm used to things happening faster. And from this lens, I have talked to so many people, and they all, when said this way, they all go, oh, yes, that makes sense.
So that's that aspect of life. Then, along with that, of course, is the people that we know who are the soulmates. This is my past life connection. We've been together before. We're going to be together again. I've wondered, were there past lives, like we had a few past lives we remember. I was very happy. But did we have past lives where we were in conflict also? Because technically, if I'm going to apply the rule, and we're going to always be with each other in some format, that for us to be in a harmonious relationship now, it's because we worked out battles before too.
Well, I asked Red Eagle how many lifetimes we've been together. And Red Eagle said, I think we had 11 lifetimes together.
That makes sense, 11.
So we got married. Okay, so that's interesting. So that means we were,
Let's talk about those roles, switching the roles. Do you feel
like when I was Jack? Okay, so I was this big, heavyset, drunk man in Ireland,
and I was there as well. We were friends,
and we were friends. We were both male, and I had a crush on his wife, and she was so lovely and took care of me. But I would drink, and I would close the cavern down, and I would walk outside and just fall asleep outside, and I was just a mess.
Yeah.
So those lifetimes, like, there's no way, there's no relationship. There's me trying to figure out parts of myself,
right,
and parts of my life. People want to know, how do I know what my past life is? So I wanted to say there's so many ways to figure this out. It's very detailed.
Let's go down the list. What's the first thing? Okay.
The easiest way is when you journey. You cannot deny. The easiest way is when you journey on. Well, for me, I could only talk about I could only talk about psilocybin. So when you journey, you could either do mirror work, and that you are instantly going to start to see a lot of people, especially if you have the intention to see it.
Right.
You will start to see all the different faces of the different people you were. That's happened to me many times. The other thing is, from my vantage point as we are shamans, I get to talk to people while they're journeying, and I see literally in real life, which I've seen with you too, their face shifting.
Yes.
And we have seen how many people show the caveman.
Countless, guys, countless.
The caveman life.
I've seen them back to the caveman.
Can you believe how far back? I think, did you ever see that with me? I can't remember.
I saw you more as futuristic. I saw you as you turned into an elf. I saw the elven. Now, those are, of course, multi-dimensional lifetimes. Yeah. I've seen you look like a very old woman. Yeah. I saw you turn into a very heavy-set, dark black African woman whom you channeled. Yeah. So you can be all of these different things. Now, this brings up a point. And I said this recently in a podcast. I was on this podcast with Emilio Ortiz. And we were talking about when we ask our ancestors for help, and we say, I call on my ancestors to help me. Great, I love it. But I said, here's a little thing that I'm going to kind of like mess you up with. Do you know you have ancestors that are not of your ethnicity that you are now? Because you used to be a different ethnicity many, many, many lifetimes. So I may be this dark-skinned, man now, but I could have been super white before, and I had a grandma then. I had great-grandparents. I had ancestors then. And it's very possible that when I'm asking my ancestors for help, I got my German, Irish, Eskimo ancestors helping me. Meanwhile, it's not my Indian ancestors or my Persian, African, Mongolian ancestors of this lifetime.
You know what else is really possible?
What?
Like when we go back east to do our haunted tour that we're going to be doing soon.
Yeah.
We can be going into cemeteries and walking across tombstones.
That is my own grave?
Your own grave of a different ethnicity, different time period.
Okay, think about that. It's possible, you guys.
That you have seen.
Your own tombstone. And maybe you didn't even feel anything.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And sometimes you do feel an inclination. But here's the thing. I have had inclinations that I thought I was Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah. I thought I was Princess Di. I thought I was Mary Magdalene.
Can I talk about that?
And let me just tell you real quick, let me close that.
Please say
so
it.
When I asked Red Eagle if that was, and Red Eagle, I've seen him channel 5 billion times to so many billions of people. And so I really, really, really trust everything because he's just so accurate and it's ridiculous. And he's a spirit guide and you can't deny it. And he said to me, nope, you are none of those things. You are not Teddy Roosevelt. You are not Princess Di, but there is that oversoul.
Well, I can tell you, and to be very frank, I can't even begin to count how many people in my classes, my clients, my students over the last 15 to 20 years have thought that they were absolutely, without a doubt, they were Mary Magdalene.
I think 99% of women think that they're Mary Magdalene.
No, I wouldn't say that one, but a lot of people have. I can say that countless. I can't count them.
Right.
Or thought that they were a pharaoh, or said that they were a Native American chief.
Right.
Or said that they were something very, you might say, grand.
Grand.
Okay.
Because they can feel it inside themselves.
Okay, so I'm going to break it down why.
Yeah.
Now, look, I'll just tell, again, I always speak from my experience. So everything is, IMHO, in my humble opinion. So I would say that what I have seen is these great figures who are still with us, but they are spirit guides. Yes, even Teddy Roosevelt. Yes, Princess Diana. Come on. Clearly, she has that great love.
Exactly.
So these souls are, you might say, very experienced. You can call them very big souls, but we're all big souls. What I mean by that is really had just more lifetimes than us.
Right.
It's like someone who's been at the job a lot longer than you have.
Right.
Right? They're just made of something different. Somebody's been there 40 years at your job.
Yeah, they have a whole different take on it.
They got a whole other take on the whole situation. So they have a fragment. We call that a fragment soul. So maybe Mary Magdalene said when she was going on the other side, I'm going to send a little spark. So if I took this button off my shirt and threw it into somebody else's shirt and it became a part of their shirt, right? So she's got a million buttons in her. And so maybe she has that energy. And I'm talking in a very real way. I am not talking about the emotional influence or who she represents, what she represents to be because of the religious background or spiritual teachings around her. I'm not talking about that, guys. I'm actually talking about a metaphysical reality, meaning you are made of this energy matter that is pure consciousness, which is pure intelligence, which is pure love, and they could literally take a piece of them and go like that, and
Well,
it becomes part of you.
I'm going to say something I've never said to you before.
What?
It's one of those moments.
Yes.
So you know who I feel is a fragmented soul with me?
Who?
That we have the same oversoul and possibly we're of the same being.
Yeah.
Is Jane Roberts. That was like confirmation, validation. Second, she's in a coupling. I say is because she's so alive to me, but she's in a coupling with her husband, Robert Butts, in a channeling marriage like this.
It was a channeling marriage. She's a trance
But it was
channel.
opposite, yeah.
He was an artist. Okay,
Just like me.
Let's set it up. Okay, Jane Roberts, a great trance channel, born on May 8th, just like Araya, was married to an artist named Robert.
I named my oldest son Robert.
They both started their, you might say, their channeling empire with books and talks and teachings together, and that was their life's work. Cut to Araya. Her life's work is being in a marriage that's centered around channeling as well, except now I'm the channeler, and she's the artist because she's actually is a painter and designer. So these things, now let's talk about dates, because we wanted to talk about how to kind of navigate past life connections.
Yeah.
Many times there's a date involved
Dates
that
are prevalent.
is significant. Dates also point to soul contracts. I'll give you a small example. My dad had a sister born on December 22nd. His sister drove him crazy. He was like, my goodness, that relationship. My dad ends up having a son who's born the same date as his sister. That was the pain in the ass. Okay? And he's like, oh, God, now I got a son with the same birthday as my sister, my overbearing sister. Cut to, that son ends up having a daughter with his dad's birthday, which is also my dad, meaning the karma repeated. Now his son is having a child who has the same birthday as him, and my dad and my brother had major issues together as well.
And that's how your confirmation,
Soul
a lot
group,
of people
soul
have
group.
that.
Yeah.
It's a soul group confirmation. When you see those dates, you guys, it does mean something. And there was one time I sat down, and it took me about 3 months, and I started tracking all the dates and names and correlations of all the people in our life. And I gave up after a while because it went on and on and on and on.
So names, dates, you would also say that these correlations are coordinates. See, numbers are coordinates, aren't they?
Yeah, those coordinates, if you put them on a map, it looks like a sacred geometry.
It could, but just numbers in general are coordinates. That's what we use them for. We're ascribing them to an intersection, whether it's you're building this house, which needs math and numbers, or it is, I'll meet you at the corner of 18th Avenue and, whatever, 42nd Street, whatever, right? So when we start to see these so-called coincidence, correlations, coordinates appear. We also recognize past life people by, sometimes it's an object or a symbol or a way of sneezing or laughing that triggers the past life memory.
Right.
Very often, by the way, I've noticed this. It's a fragrance.
And it's also I've seen you in stores. I've watched you do it. You would pick up something you've never seen before and you'd hold it and your whole body would get chills, and your whole body, you would just, because you're so sensitive and you're like, It's like you understood this thing, or you
As
knew
if
it.
this was mine
like
in some
you've
way.
owned it before,
Yeah.
or you had something close. Yeah.
Or I had something close to it.
Right.
Okay, so for me, fragrance also is a big deal. I've noticed
Right.
this with people. They'll be walking somewhere and the way the air smells completely takes them back.
Right.
Because it's that inspiration of the life force, which is air. And that is such a powerful, it's like, it's our interface with this world, is the breathing. So
And
you
what about
remember-
our TV shows? So they're set back in the 1800s, they're set back in the 1600s, they're set back in the French Revolution, they're set back in the Viking era. How many of you, when you're watching, you just go, oh my God, I know everything about this time period.
Right.
I know what that tastes like. I know what that feels like. I know what those clothes look like and feel like. You could just remember. The more sensitive you are and the more in tune and the more you feel like, allow yourself to remember, you'll feel it.
Now, of course, the most traditional way to do some past life work is to do a regression, which is with a hypnotherapist. And guys, hypnotherapists are everywhere. You can do it. Now they're doing it even on Zoom. You don't need to be in the room or in the same city or state as that hypnotherapist. This is to bring you into a deeper state of consciousness, more relaxed, where you can access memories that you didn't know you had. They've done this also with people who
And
had
that's soul memories.
soul memories. There are sometimes markings on a body. I've been on
Markings
the
on a
phone with
body, yeah.
people, and I'll say, I see a past life where I see a wound. Okay, and I'll describe exactly on the phone. I've never seen this person before. And I'll say, oh, there's something like behind your left elbow where I see like you had a knife wound in this past life. Invariably, I mean, 9 times out of 10, they will say, I just got a tattoo there. Or because I'm covering up a scar, I don't know where I got the scar from. Or they'll say that I've always had a pain there. So this is...
Or they have a birthmark.
Or a birth, thank you. Or a birthmark. So this is now physical matter being created by the soul memory being carried over into this body.
One of my favorite examples of this is when we first met, the very first night we met, you said to me, we were at a party, and you said to me, I know this sounds weird because I told him I had children. That's all I said. And he said, do you have a Japanese son? I know that sounds weird, but do you have a Japanese son? I said, funny you say that. So it turns out my oldest son at the time was studying origami, studying Japanese, loved every anime,
learning Japanese by himself before YouTube,
watching Miyazaki before anybody knew about Miyazaki,
obsessed with Japan,
obsessed, playing all the video games on the little Game Boy. He was immersed in Japanese culture.
Said he wanted to live in Japan.
Said he wanted to
Still
live.
says it.
And we eventually took him. But fast forward, he ended up becoming a master origami specialist and worked for NASA. And still, interacts with NASA, but for many, many years, and was a part of the design for the star shade and did his origami. That's where it ended up going. But this was a past life.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
He came absolutely with this information.
Now, how did this happen? This was a night where you and I, this is the first night we ever met. It was at a mutual friend's party. And you were sitting next to me, and I just, of course, I'll always just start reading. You ever see me at a party? You sit next to me, eventually you'll get a reading. So we began the conversation and eventually got to you having the kids. And when you said, I have 5 kids, and I said, who's the boy? And you said his name, and I saw a Japanese face, guys. That's why I said, and clearly she doesn't have any Asian in her, and his father's not. So I was like, well, maybe she had a husband where the guy was Asian, clearly. And so I had to ask that kind of sensitive question. Okay, now, I just got something. When we were talking about the elbow thing, that's another coordinate. So these coordinates repeat. I've never actually said, I've never said this analogy before. I'm getting it right now as we are talking. So these are all coordinates. Places, a location is a coordinate. You can find it on a map through numbers. Birthdays and numbers. Sequences of numbers that tell you you're in the right place at the right time. You always go, oh, I look and the clock is 444, or it's always 7, I see 7s everywhere. This is kind of like markers that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And the question invariably happens is that people say, well, what does it mean? Okay, fine, I see the numbers. Okay, fine, I got that thing in my elbow and I smell this air what does it mean? We go, well, first of all, can you enjoy it? That there's more to life than just death, taxes, and, scrolling. So, yes, there's more to life. Okay, what else can you get from it? Well, I'm an eternal being. Okay, if you're an eternal being and you've been here many times and you say, okay, I'm always going to be alive, changing bodies, you might be able to relax a little bit more into this life because you have more time. Don't you relax more when you have time? You're not going to rush to work if you have plenty of time to get there. So that's what I see it as. It allows you to relax more into each lifetime. So when I do a past life reading, even though you may have had hundreds of past lives, the only lifetimes that are going to be shown to me are the ones that have a meaning for this current chapter of your life now. And if I give you a reading 2 years from now, it will be for that time period of your life.
What's perfect about what you're saying is that not only does it relax you, but you also get this feeling that you are learning to see things from a new perspective. For instance, imagine you're always looking at everything through a tube, a singular tube, right? And you're just looking like this straight through and you see one single vision. That's how most of us were raised, is to see life one particular way. And so now imagine looking at your life through a kaleidoscope. And so as you move the kaleidoscope, you see the patterns and the symbols. I think the kaleidoscope is one of the most magical creations ever made. And I gave it to my daughter. We gave it to Alex
It's sacred
recently.
geometry.
I gave it to her a present from Japan. It was a little kaleidoscope because it's meaningful what it's saying. The kaleidoscope is saying, look at life from multifaceted views, constantly shifting and changing in a symmetrical way, full of color and dynamics, and continuously see yourself in these realms because you are all these realms. And that's why you can understand it and relate to it from a symbolic place. And so I look at kaleidoscopes as probably one of the most artistic expressions of our lives, of how to see us. So you're perfectly saying what you said was perfect about relaxing, because when you relax, you start to look outward, upward, down, in. You start to remove the tunnel vision and you start to see the technicolor and the kaleidoscope of colors, of sounds, frequencies. Because when you go imagine you go, you go to a country, you go visit a country you've never been to before. And let's say you're in the tunnel vision. Okay. So you go and look and everything is so and okay. And the food is okay. And everything is kind of grayscale. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, they're different than me. Got it. And it's like, it doesn't go any further than that. It's like, you don't know how to fit it into your world. So you look at it like you're looking at an animal in a zoo. Like you don't even know what you're looking at. That is how most people start their journey when they're looking at things.
Yeah, and the kaleidoscope is...
Now imagine, I can't leave people just hanging on that, right? So I got to continue, with what I'm saying. So the second part of it is if you go when you're awakened, it's totally different. So when you go when you're awakened, now you have a completely different experience. So when you go, you're starting to see, oh my God, I remember these flavors. Oh, I know that smell. Listen to that sound. Did I used to live here? Oh, wow, I feel differently here. When I walked into that building, I felt this way. But when I walked into that building, I felt a different way. Was it because of what's in the building, or was it because of the location? Is it because of the coordinates of maybe like where the vortexes are?
Right.
Is it because I've been here before? That's when you start to have a conscious, multi-dimensional experience of life, of yourself.
It starts to blow your mind, right? Because you have those moments where there's...
Like Red Eagle says, you'll never be bored.
Right. You're getting this, and you guys probably, some of you who are watching now are experiencing this right now, that this seems to constantly be happening for an extended period of time, weeks, months, even years, where you're just in this, and some of your friends don't know what's going on with you. You change your friends. You maybe don't even hang out as much as before.
Right.
Everything becomes like the kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
You're turning that kaleidoscope. It's almost like you're changing the lens or focusing or defocusing. It's a great analogy because it's meant to be a fantastic journey in the sense that even when you are going through painful stuff, you know that it's affecting you in a way that you will now have the choice to make it positive or negative. Negative meaning your vibration goes down. Positive means your vibration goes up. You have a new energy for life. Or you have an old energy that stays and drags you down. So there are lifetimes where, by the way, which some people don't talk about, you have lifetimes that are kind of like duds in a sense, meaning like not much happened. There was a lifetime, you worked and you were like, you were cracking rocks and you were building stuff and you had a decent life, but nothing spectacular. Those were, I'm sure they've had their reasons for that.
Yeah, because maybe you just only learned how to work.
Right.
I just had to learn how to move that rock from here to there.
But it wasn't about massive things shifting, and it wasn't about incredible triumphs and tragedies happening. Those are not the standout lives, right? Right. Mm-hmm. But in the symphony, in the orchestration, in the piece of music that is your life,
right,
there are moments that are going to be high, peak, loud volume in the symphony,
right,
and then very quiet ones that go on for a while.
Right.
So this is why many of the spirit guides, and one of the first guides I ever channeled was Johann Sebastian Bach, the composer. I didn't study classical music. I'm a rock and roll hip hop guy, okay? But this was coming through me, and he came through in a channeling session to speak about harmonies, frequencies, rhythms, all musical terms, but the orchestration of life. And he came to say that all of these instruments are like lifetimes in the orchestra. You got this 100-piece orchestra. They all have different instruments. They all have different frequencies. Some of them sound better together. Some don't sound so good alone, and some sound great alone. These are like lifetimes, and you are in this orchestration, this beautiful symphony of your life. Some of the instruments are dark and foreboding and ominous, and you only need to hear the tuba a couple of times or the drum a couple of times. This is where we are, where we have to say, well, what is our true nature? What do we really believe beyond what we have been taught? Does it make sense to you on the soul level, in your deepest part of you, that you are eternal, that you continue? And does it logically make sense to you that just within 75 to 85 years, you're going to experience and know everything on this earth?
If you believe in love, it will make sense to you.
Yes.
Because you're going to want to experience yourself forever.
Yes. Yes. So
the other thing I was going to say is, how do you feel about AI art? I think AI art has moved the past life conversation along exponentially.
Tell me, AI art has moved? Wait, now I want to hear this.
Yeah, so starting from way back a few years ago, when we were all crazy about doing these apps on Instagram, and we would put the picture up of us in different costumes, looking like different characters from history.
Right. I made myself
then
like a cowboy.
Then Ancestry.com and 23andMe started doing it, and like you could even, like, they have apps for that too. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there's some you can go back to the Roman Empire. Many men are interested in that, but you can change the Roman Empire thing. You've never been interested in it.
I know,
that
it's
phenomenon,
interesting, right?
But it's interesting that men think about that all the time.
So the art,
art, I think it triggers.
So you could put a picture in of yourself, and it would turn you into a cowboy or a farmer, or a Chinese monk. I think it's really helpful because it keeps the subconscious and conscious mind open to look at yourself with different faces and different views. And people are afraid to see themselves differently than what they see themselves today, because they're taught from a young age to be one thing, and if you're not that one thing, then your whole world's going to fall apart. Tradition and what were your ancestors.
And the rebellious ones are ones that just want to experience themselves in different ways, different formats. And this particular society we're hopefully growing out of teaches you that you're not allowed to look at yourself from all these different kaleidoscope of colors, but we're breaking ground in this area. I think as a whole, as a consciousness, we're all coming through. And I think it's showcasing itself in music, art, media. If you look at YouTube, like, the kaleidoscope has been replaced with these videos of these amazing mosaics.
The AI art. I want to go into that a little further, guys. Why we like it.
Yeah.
So we like seeing ourselves in these different avatars. Video games have avatars. You play these different versions.
That's why we love seeing ourselves in characters.
So why do we like it? Is because it's innate. It's in us that we have been all of these things before, or we will be some of them in the future.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why we looked up to our wonderful actors and theatrical actors and people who are playing roles that we can relate to.
Part of our tradition, or
Right.
I can't say tradition. I meant it's part of our DNA.
Right.
Mentally.
Yes.
To want to be different things, look different ways.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So as a collective, like it or not, the artists and the engineers and the tech people were inspired to create these AI images and AI art of ourselves.
And we eat it up.
We eat it up. And, you know, I know that there's this whole conversation about losing jobs and everything, but for every job that we lose, you guys, there's just going to be new jobs replacing it in new areas and new technology. My view on that, just to segue quickly, is don't be afraid of losing your job. Be open to the idea of learning something new. So stay loose in technology so that you can grow with technology. And it's better to do it that way, because look, everybody's going to need a contractor and everybody's going to need a construction worker, but eventually, like
There'll be robots doing it.
There's 3D printers making houses. So like, if you stay relaxed and open to the growth of technology, you'll never feel that feeling of being extinct, like your job and yourself and your role in life is going to be over because the thing you do best is gone. Just stay flexible and pivot, and stay flexible and pivot again.
See, that still ties into past life. I think that as a soul, we pivot in each lifetime. Okay, I'm not going to do it that way again, or I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to try it a little bit different.
Right.
And that pivoting eventually leads, you keep pivoting. Now you're on the totally opposite end of the circle where you used to be poor and now you're wealthy, or you used to be wealthy and now you're poor, or you used to be technical and now you're an artist.
Right.
Whatever the opposites seem to be.
Right.
So do you think that let's talk a little bit about, can you go back, and I talk about this, and as a shaman, my job is for people to heal the past, make peace with the present, not worry about the future. Okay? So do you think that we can, when we do past life work, like what is past life work? When someone says, I'm doing a lot of past life work, we've heard that, maybe you guys are doing it even now. Let's can you break down what people mean by they say I'm doing past life work?
Well, I'm going to use the example of that one life that you and I shared. So I was Lisbeth and you were Richard. Actually, Lisbeth and Richard, but that's how we like to say it back then. So I'm going to use them as an example without going too into detail. I just want to say that I started to understand why she was so prevalent and came through so clearly in my life. And it was because I needed to understand how to relax as an empath, especially how to relax in social settings. Because as an empath, I am very hypersensitive to people's intentionality and what they're thinking and feeling. I can feel it. And so, of course, if you feel too many things you don't want to feel, you start to get like, you just don't want to be social. And a lot of people understand that and they're very sensitive. Now, in that lifetime, she tried to constantly go in social circles. And I just remember all of her deepest desires was to be accepted in these like it was kind of like in that era, the Gilded Age era.
Like the Gilded Age. That's
remember?
Interesting. Yes.
So like the Gilded Age era. So and so everything was about society. So in this lifetime, it's not so much about society the same way for me. It's about actually feeling comfortable and relaxed in those social circles. So I took the conversation further than where she took it. She took it, just get into the circle. I took it, yes, but what happens when you're in the circle? Then you start to feel what's really happening.
So
and then I turn around and run back.
When you're the one who made the circle.
Well, that's kind of what I'm trying to do is I just want to make my own circle.
You making your own circle. The next lifetime, maybe you'll break the circle.
I'll make the circle and break the circle. The disruptor, yeah.
So those are interesting.
So when people are working on their past lives, I feel like if they were to take, and you can journal and you could meditate and you could ask your subconscious mind to dream of past lives. Look, all you can do at this point without doing all the things that we have mentioned you to do is you just need to start writing everything you see. Be like not a philanthropist, anthropologist, somebody who's going through a foreign city and you're taking notes. That's how you have to look at your life from now on.
What are you taking notes of? The meditation?
Meditations, correlations to dates, correlations to time frames, things that are patterns, ways of being, things that you felt. Like when I went to Egypt, I remember XYZ.
Right.
For instance, we had a client that went with us to Egypt, and she was totally fine, relaxed, very peaceful the whole trip. And then she walks into the king's chamber.
Yeah.
And the Isle of the Valley of the Kings. And she walks in and bursts into tears. I was going to say flames. I don't know why. She burst into...
That would be something.
So weird.
I'm sure it's happened before.
She burst into tears and could not stop crying. And I had to hold her. She was shaking, crying, hysterical. And then she couldn't stop, which made her more hysterical. And then when she finally stopped, she told me later, she said it was overwhelming that she was there and she was a part of that particular grave that we were at. I can't remember who it was. She was
part of the two. She was either
Tutankhamun, probably.
Yeah. She was either one of the workers,
or a part of the family, or in that whole. And she felt every single thing, and she said it was life changing. It was overwhelming, and that's why it's so important to travel. And it's all important. That's why we do these sacred earth retreats, you guys.
That's why the retreats happen, you guys.
It's one of the main reasons. People don't realize that. I mean, it's not a hokey statement. We take people and they have past life memories.
Because these are vortexes where... Now, let's talk about this for a second, because people have asked me this question. How come when you have past life readings, so many people were in ancient Egypt or they were a Native American? Come on. Let me tell you why.
Well, what else was going on around that time period? Well, there was only a couple kingdoms that were prevalent on the earth during those time periods.
But why that? Well, let me tell you, that so-called phenomenon happens more in the West for a actual reason. Mm-hmm. So when I've done readings in places like India or other parts of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, or in Asia when I've done readings, those past life people did not have past lives so much in those areas.
Right.
And I've done thousands of readings across the world. It's because this country, the vortex that is North America, the United States, the souls that have been reincarnated here have had those very powerful lifetimes. For example, they had a strong Native American lifetime, so they come back to where they had that lifetime. Mm-hmm. Okay, it was here. So they reincarnate on the same land, but not in the same ethnicity. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people in the West have had Egyptian lifetimes. Mm-hmm. Now, why? Mm-hmm. Because that story, that was that lifetime, which was about building and kingdoms and magic and oppression and whatever they have been. And I'm talking 50,000, 100,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about ancient Egypt of 2,500 years ago. That's modern history to me. Mm-hmm. The intergalactic connection there. So they end up coming to the West to have a very different life experience. Mm-hmm. They're not usually born right back into the East. That's why you hear this so often in the West, that somebody had a Native American tribal or Egyptian lifetime. It's not because they've watched too many movies. There's a soul connection there, a group mass consciousness.
There's a lot of really great movies that showcase past lives as well.
What's your favorite?
You would never think this is a past life movie, but the Back to the Future movies. No one ever saw that. And
they presented timelines in a really great way.
Yeah, no one's ever said anything about past lives and Back to the Future, but I get a feeling every time I watch it, I'm like, oh my God.
Yes.
That is such a deep feeling I get. Like, this is the same principle. And what other, there's been, I think Robin Williams. I had a hard time getting.
Reeve movie?
Oh, Somewhere in Time.
Then there was that
really
not
good.
Cloud 9.
Yeah,
what was it called?
Cloud 9.
Was it called Cloud 9?
Was that the one with Robin?
Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas.
Cloud 9.
Where did Cloud 9
Atlas
come from?
was about past lives.
Right.
Which I need to watch again because I didn't give it a fair shake. It didn't go like the way I wanted a past life movie to go. Yeah,
that's how I felt too. That's why I wasn't so into it. I have to watch it
Let's watch it again.
Yeah.
What about what was past life?
By the way,
mostly time travel is what I've seen. Not a lot of past life.
People are going to ask this question, so I'm just going to say it. Yes, you can have past lives in other solar systems. Of course, you can have past lives in other planetary systems. I would like the next conversation, maybe when we do our next video, to be what happens when you take the past life conversation and remove the word past from the conversation.
And say that current lifetime or future lifetime?
Multidimensionally, simultaneous
lifetime. Yes.
lifetimes. Now that's something that's really hard for us human, our human brains to get behind, because the idea that there's a simultaneous life living and existing, it looks different from the one we're in now.
There's going to be a lot of questions. You know what? If you guys have questions about that.
That's a good channeling topic, by the way.
Okay, I'll channel a guide and maybe we'll get some answers. But you guys, you can put that in the comments about anything you want to talk about with past lives. What were your past lives? Or if you've had any kind of drops of pearls of knowledge, of wisdom that have come from that, we'd love to hear about it.
Yes.
And
what past lives do you think that you have had?
Yes, exactly. We'll talk about, I think we're probably going to need a part 2 to this.
Yeah, and let me leave you with this.
Yeah.
We didn't cover this. Inclinations.
What do you mean?
So when we have inclinations.
Preferences.
Yeah, but we're inclined to do, you use the word, I'm cut out for something or not cut out for something. I don't use that word for some reason. I use inclination.
Yes.
So when I'm inclined to do something over something else, I have a natural knack for it, or something that feels, it draws me and it pulls me forward, like it's easy for me to do. I feel like that also has to do with your past lives giving you information. It's like that's your source of why it's so easy for you. Some people have a green thumb and they can, like, anything they touch, plants grow. Other people kill every plant they have. And so there's a question about, like, maybe in a past life there was
so we can talk
relevation.
DNA, physical DNA versus spiritual DNA. That's going to be okay. We'll kick off part 2 with that topic.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. This was a very enlightening and fun conversation about past life. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.